What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So the St. Louis Blues are without a doubt the hottest team in the NHL right now. I'm not breaking any news by sharing that. They've won 11 straight games, 17-2-1 in their last 20 games, and a decent amount of this overall season success, and especially of late, was because of the two offer sheets that they gave out this season. And Dylan Holloway, who has like 64 points in 74 games, and Philip Broberg has been in a very effective second pair defenseman for them. Holloway only 2 years, $2.1 million. Broberg 2 years, 4.5, and it kind of got me thinking, as well as I think also Bleacher Report and The Athletic wrote about this relatively recently, what players this season can get offer sheet. Not saying they're going to have the same extreme success as the two St. Louis guys, but what guys could potentially get offer sheeted. So I'm going to go through 8 guys, and these are going to be 8 guys that I realistically think, when looking at some of the guys that I do not think are going to get offer sheeted, that you might see in articles to get like headlines. Keandre Miller, don't think that he's going anywhere with the New York Rangers, because besides him and Adam Fox, their defense core falls off a cliff. They'd match any hypothetical offer sheet, and I think that they're going to get something done. Evan Bouchard, if Matthias Ekholm was like 29 years old, I can maybe see an argument that you let him get offer sheeted at $9-10 million and you take a bunch of picks. But no, Bouchard's going to be Ekholm's going to be 35 years old next month. Bouchard is your number one defenseman, beast offensively, playoff proven, so he's going to re-sign. No worries about that. Matty Nyes, I understand that with Tavares and Marner, it might get a little bit dicey, but I fully expect him to be re-signed in Toronto. He's like their only U26 promising player right now on the roster. You got to maintain that, and I think that he'll re-sign for a pretty solid deal. Winnipeg has Sandberg and Velarde. I think that they'd tell Neil Pionk, and I think Ehlers especially, to kind of hit unrestricted free agency before they risked losing those guys, because they have been so good this season. As well as Marco Rossi, I don't see it happening. I think at this point, he's probably going to be the number one center in a couple years, maybe even next season, ahead of Joel Eriksson. There's been trade rumors around him, but I never really bought that. And if you're Minnesota, getting offer sheeted and taking a bunch of 2 first-round picks or something like that makes absolutely no sense. Next year, you're going to expect to be contending at a high level, considering you have all that salary cap coming off the books. Re-sign Marco Rossi. Marco Rossi has been so good in terms of his development in this season. He's going to get re-signed. But yeah, now we're going to go through 8 different guys that I think have a somewhat realistic chance in terms of someone offer sheeting and in terms of their team potentially not matching that offer sheet. Not saying that these guys are going to get offer sheeted and their teams would be like, hit the road, see you later. But yeah, we're going to go through this now. Also, just before we dive into these contracts, when I mention what these guys potentially could sign in an offer sheet, you're going to see me mention 5-year deals for some of the longer-term guys. That is because with offer sheets, the total value of the deal gets divided by the amount of years. But if it's 6 or 7 years, it only gets divided by 5 years. For example, the example here is a 7-year, $35 million, 5-year per deal would get divided by 5 instead of 7. So it would jump in terms of what the compensation is. Here's the compensation last summer in terms of offer sheets. The salary cap is going up, so you can expect like a $500,000 increase in terms of that. But yeah, that's what we're going to be referencing in terms of 5-year deals and what the compensation would be to give up to get some of these guys. Let's get into it. Let's dive into it. Up first, JJ Peterka. You look around, if I was JJ Peterka, I see, although I wasn't as high as a pick, I'm a proven guy the last 2 years, and when looking at it, Thompson, Cousins, Power, Dahlin all got locked up either in the summer or right before the start of the season of their expiring year. Meanwhile, JJ Peterka does not have a deal yet. There was rumors at the deadline that there may have been some type of trade. Of course, Kevin Adams eventually came out and said that that was not happening, but I mean, if you're a GM, you're going to say that if nothing actually did happen. If nothing actually materialized, you're going to be like, yeah, we were about to trade him. So when looking at that, there maybe is some smoke on terms of Peterka and the Buffalo Sabres not exactly being on the same footing in terms of a contract. Maybe the Sabres want to go with the bridge. Peterka maybe wants something a little bit longer, considering the Sabres got a little bit burnt on the Dylan Cousins long-term deal, and Owen Power's deal isn't looking exactly fantastic. So if Buffalo's offering a 3-year deal at $5.55 million, 5.5, and a young team says, screw it, we'll give you 5 years at 7.5, 7.75. I think that's definitely possible. Give up that first, second, and third round pick for a guy like JJ Peterka that last year had 28 goals, this year has 60 points in 69 games at 23 years old. I would definitely do that if I was a team coming out of a rebuild, like a Utah hockey club, maybe even like a Montreal Canadiens or something like that. He is definitely a very valuable asset. And if you're Buffalo and you haven't won of late with some of your guys on relatively cheap deals like Tuck, like Peterka, maybe you just say, okay, we got young guys within the system coming up that will not need $7.5 million. we'll take the first and second round pick and kind of do another little rebuild with our current core. Next up, Noah Dobson. After his 70-point season, you expected him to sign a deal akin to like Brock Faber, 8 years, 8.5. Moritz Seider, same roughly. He's really kind of fumbled the bag this season. 35 points in 63 games. And when he got hurt, Tony DeAngelo, not saying Tony DeAngelo's as good or a better player than Noah Dobson, but Tony DeAngelo came in and did a lot of things that Noah Dobson can do. And in terms of Noah Dobson, just dumb turnovers, getting bodied in front of the net, playing the puck bad in his own zone. He's lost a lot of money. I definitely think, again, a young team could potentially say he's worth the risk. He scored 70 points in a season, like a Montreal, like a St. Louis, Calgary, Utah, something like that, a right-handed defenseman that's very valuable. And from the Islanders' perspective, maybe they say, we're not giving you this super deal. Instead, we'll take the picks. We already have kind of been thinking more about the future than the current. I know Noah Dobson's still only 25 years old, but I think in terms of an offer sheet, they probably would just trade his rights instead of the offer sheet. But it's definitely possible because I think Noah Dobson has kind of fumbled it in this contract year. And I can't imagine Lou Lamoriello is chomping at the bit. I understand Noah Dobson, rightfully so, is going to demand that 8 by 8, 8.5 still, because even this year he's still a 45, 50-point guy, pace guy. But no, if I'm the Islanders, maybe I'm just saying go find a deal somewhere else, and then we'll just take the picks from a team that might be coming out of a rebuild next year, but also could potentially not be very good, and we get the 12th overall pick for Noah Dobson. I think you're perfectly fine with that. An underrated pick, Maverick Bourque. I think that when looking at a Dylan Holloway last year, now the Oilers definitely should have matched Holloway at only $2.2 million. I don't know why they didn't do that. Broberg, that's hindsight in my opinion. Broberg was barely cracking the lineup and got 4.5. But I think Maverick Bourque, when looking at him last season, 77 points in 71 games. So the offense is definitely there. And even in the NHL, he's only playing like 12 minutes a night and has 24 points in 66 games. His defensive numbers have been very encouraging for a rookie. So if I was a young team, I'd offer a 2-year, $5 million deal, only give up a second-round pick. And I think Dallas would somehow find the money to make it work, but that would definitely be an overpayment for a Dallas team that is trying to win a Stanley Cup right now, as evident by the Rantanen trade and the other moves that they have made of late. So that would be a tough decision for Dallas to say, okay, we can't sign Matt Duchene because we got to match this offer sheet at $2.5 million. Yeah, it would definitely be interesting. And they'll probably have to just re-sign Duchene before July 1st or on July 1st. So when looking at it, I think Maverick Bourque's a very intriguing guy that if I was a young team coming out of a rebuild, similarly to the St. Louis Blues, just to get him in the system, it might be an overpay for those 2 years, but you get him within the system, and he's already a pretty effective NHLer. It's not like he's some completely unproven prospect. His track record is very solid. If I'm like the Philadelphia Flyers, the Boston Bruins, Pittsburgh Penguins, Sharks, Hawks, I'd give up my second-round pick to potentially get Maverick Bourque within my system. Again, even if it is a little bit of an overpay. We said the Broberg deal was going to be an overpay, and they ended up being worth it right off rip. I think Maverick Bourque, in a situation where he would have more ice time, easily can be a 45-point solid middle sixer for a team as soon as next season. Next up, we're sticking in Buffalo. Bowen Byram still has a lot of talent, but has been forced to play on the right side with Rasmus Dahlin. The results have been solid, but a lot of that is because of Rasmus Dahlin. There was a report a while back that he wants to be a number one defenseman somewhere. That's going to be tough, but if he wants to get offer sheeted to go to somewhere where he can play a little bit more and play on his natural side, that's definitely possible. And looking at the Buffalo Sabres, they already have 2 lefties locked up long-term over $8 million. So if I'm, again, a young team coming out of a rebuild that wants to bet on Bowen Byram and give him some kind of 5-year deal at $6.57 million, still, you'd only be giving up, I believe, a first and a third round pick in that situation. You bet on Bowen Byram, you bring him in, like a Calgary Flames or something like that. Maybe they shouldn't give up their first round pick next year, but if I'm them, I'm definitely trying to acquire younger, especially defensemen outside of Weegar and Anderson. That defense core is it's not very young, point blank, period, and it's not very good with those two guys, what are 31 and 28 years old. So yeah, maybe bring in someone like that. The Seattle Kraken, although you probably don't want to give up your first round pick, they don't have much in terms of defenseman prospects within the system. So Bowen Byram is definitely an interesting name because he has a track record where he could demand a decent contract, and maybe Buffalo just doesn't want to give it to him, so he decides to hit the open market in terms of an offer sheet. Mason McTavish. Pat Verbeek seems to be very firm in his contract negotiations. He doesn't like to budge. We saw with Trevor Zegras, he probably wanted something more long-term, ended up with a 3-year deal at $5.75 million. So again, if a team really likes Mason McTavish, who's 22 years old and has put up back-to-back around 50-ish point pace seasons. They offer him a 5-year deal at 7.5, 7.75, bet on the potential, and already he's like a $5 to $6 million player. I definitely could see something like that happen. And if you're Anaheim, maybe you wouldn't match, considering you have Leo Carlsson. You're going to get another high pick where maybe you select a center, as well as just a bunch of young forwards. Seneca, Zegras, Troy Terry's still decently young. So yeah, Mason McTavish, in terms of his negotiations, I don't know if he's earned like a long-term 8-year deal at 7.5, but maybe a team decides to try to offer him that 4 to 5-year deal and give up a first, second, and a third-round pick to get Mason McTavish. It's definitely somewhat within reason. Cam York. Now, in looking at this, there was definitely some beef of late with Cam York. Tortorella ended up being the one that went, considering he got fired shortly after. But I can't imagine Cam York has been too happy in Philadelphia the last year or so, considering last year it was looking like he was breaking out 30 points, playing 22, 37 a night. This year, just 15 points, not 50 points, in 60 games, playing 20, 56. So much like Bowen Byram, if a team's very high on him and they want to offer him some kind of contract, and even looking at Philadelphia, Denny Briere has already cleaned house with his 2017, not his, but the team's 2017 and 2018 first-round picks in Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. So maybe Briere wants a further reset, and if someone's willing to bet on Cam York, who I still think has a lot of potential, maybe Briere just says, and especially if they get like a Matthew Schaefer in the draft or something like that, he says, yeah, I'm not too keen on re-signing you at that high of a price. Go to some team where you can maybe be in a bigger role and maybe win relatively sooner compared to Philadelphia. Morgan Geeky, very productive guy for the Boston Bruins this season. 27 goals, 18 assists, 45 points in 71 games. This is more of a case of like, I think Boston would happily let him walk on an offer sheet if he got like within that second round, maybe even the first round and third round range in a contract, which is like $5.5 to $6.5 million. Boston probably should have sold high on this guy at the deadline. But yeah, he's an established, solid middle sixer. Definitely some inflated goal numbers because he's been playing with Pasternak. But yeah, if a team wants to bring in a 25, 26-year-old that has proven to be able to play with elite talent, it's definitely possible. Someone offers him a 4x6 and they want to give up their first-round pick. If you're Boston, you say, thank you very much for your business. We'll continue to get younger and continue on with this rebuild. And then lastly, Mackie Samoskevich. He has been a quietly very good rookie for the Florida Panthers, especially of late. 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 points in 66 games. Similarly to Maverick Bourque, maybe if you're a team coming out of a rebuild, you give him a little bit of an overpayment, that 2-year, $5 million deal where it's still only a second-round pick. And again, even this year, he's been an effective third liner. I think next year he can be around the half a point per game. He's already close to half a point per game this season, be around the 45-point guy. Get him within your organization. Teams like Calgary, the Flyers, Utah, all those teams that shouldn't be bottom 8 teams next year. And yeah, Samoskevich with the Florida Panthers, I'm sure that they love him, but they do have some key free agents in terms of Aaron Ekblad and Sam Bennett. So if they decide to re-sign both of those, and then on July 10th or something like Samoskevich, they only have $2 million in cap space for Samoskevich, a team sliding in and scooping him on some kind of offer sheet that's just far too much money, akin to Philip Broberg, I think would be a pretty sneaky, sly strategy in terms of acquiring some high-end prospect or high-end young NHL player for relatively cheap. And I think Samoskevich would be exactly that. But yeah, those are my 8 guys. Again, didn't want to just like be clickbait and be like, Evan Bouchard could get offer sheet. That's not going to happen. But yeah, those are 8 guys that I think realistically, like I wouldn't be absolutely blown away if 1, they got offer sheeted, and 2, their teams didn't end up matching it, if that makes sense. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Who are some other guys do you think could potentially get offer sheeted? I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.